Christopher Lee's Dracula is back once again after a group of wealthy men seeking new thrills engage in a spot of dark magic. Most movie series aren't known for peaking in their 5th entries, but let's see how Hammer fares in Taste the Blood of Dracula. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me from the blood of Dracula, it's Tim.
Hey, remind me after this show, I got something you can taste.
No, this is taking a turn for the worst very, very early on. Yes, welcome everyone. This is a horror movie podcast. We get together, we talk about a horror film, and we had a little sneaky week here to get in an older movie between some of the other stuff. So we are going back to the Hammer Dracula series for the 5th entry in that franchise, within the first 4 of course, and today is Taste the Blood of Dracula from 1970. Not the only one they did in 1970, the next one's actually also from 1970, but
oh wow.
Yeah, Taste the Blood from Dracula is what we're doing today. We'll start spoiler free of course before we get into the spoilies. And of course, if you are liking the show, just, you know, hit the like button on YouTube. It helps out a bunch if you do. And of course, you can get some bonus stuff over at Patreon if you want to help support us. But I'll tell you more about all that stuff at the end of the show. Sometimes I look over at Tim when I'm doing my intro, and he's got like such a blank stare on him. Like he's almost about to burst into a laugh at any moment, and I just don't know what I'm supposed to do.
You remain professional.
You have never been professional on this show once.
How dare you? I take this job very seriously.
Not once. Okay, so obviously Dracula seemingly died at the end of the last one, right? So I don't think it's
for the 4th time.
Yeah, well, no, 3rd time because he wasn't in the 2nd one.
Jeez, my memory's so bad. I don't even really remember much of what happened.
Right, so the first one was obviously just the original. Well, the original Hammer Dracula, anyway. The 2nd one was Brides of Dracula. Well, there was no Dracula.
Right, that's right.
The 3rd one was Dracula, Prince of Darkness, which was pretty mediocre. And the 4th one was Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, which, not amazing by any means, but I probably enjoyed it more than the other sequels so far. So, yeah, that was all right. It had its moments. But I had forgotten exactly how it ended. Luckily, the start of this movie kind of forces you to remember, because it kind of links up with it kind of nicely. You see a little bit of it again. So... we'll get into all those details later on, but needless to say, this one does start off, once it gets going, a little bit differently from the others, which can only be a good thing really. But it's about 3 sort of upper class gentlemen in this village, this town, wherever it is. I don't know if they ever actually specify. It feels like some sort
New
of
Jersey.
I don't think it's New Jersey. Something tells me it's... well, this is the thing. I don't know if it's actually meant to be in England, because the previous movies, when they were set in, like, you know, European, Romania, whatever, like, it would still just be a bunch of people with English accents, so it's hard to tell. But regardless, 3 wealthy men who are kind of looking for a new high, a new thing to get into, because they like to... you know, enjoy the dark arts, as it were, get kind of roped in to something related to Dracula, and it does take a sort of different path to get the story set up in the first half of the movie. But of course, Dracula is eventually back, which is not a spoiler because his face is on the poster. It's kind of how they're selling the movie.
You gotta get his blood somehow.
Well, yes. So, like I say, we'll get into all the details and stuff, particularly in spoilers. But, Tim.
Yeah.
How did you feel about Taste the Blood of Dracula?
So first I will say, if I was rating this on title alone, this cat, I would give this a 10 out of 10 easily. I think this is such a great title. That being said, you know, there's other factors you have to think about.
The movie itself, yes.
Yeah, like the actual movie. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really gonna mince words. I thought this sucked pretty hard. Yeah, you know, it's just such a bummer. I was really excited when we were starting the Hammer movies, because that was kind of like a big horror blind spot for me. I think I'd seen like a few here and there, but for being kind of as big a thing as you hear, like I hear people talk about like Hammer stuff all the time, and it's just not something when we started these I'd really experienced that much. Since then I've dabbled here and there, and again my memory sucks, but I do remember liking the some of the Frankenstein ones quite a bit, but. Yeah, I don't know. I think these Dracula ones, especially with knowing, Christopher Lee is, such as iconic version of the character. I don't know. There's been cool ones in some of the other ones we do, but I feel like generally these have been a little bit of a letdown. I think this is, again, going from what I remember, though, I think this is probably the worst one by far. I don't know. I just found it kind of be a little boring. I didn't really care about any of the characters. There's far too little Dracula. I feel like in the other movies, like there were definitely like slow parts and stuff, but there was always usually like some kind of like cool little thing to be like, all right, well, I do like this idea that they're bringing up, or like this set piece, or this kind of like actiony thing. But I don't know, this one, I just feel like they really didn't have much of that. It was cool to see Christopher Lee again, but I feel like he just really wasn't in the movie that much. And I don't know, there's some stuff that I just thought was really weak, like the kind of the ending battle and what ultimately defeats Dracula. I just thought was so like such a wet thud. Like I don't know. I thought it was dumb. I also just think I don't know. I don't know if there's parts that maybe that just flew over my head or I got missed, but I feel like there's just, not that I want to say that it didn't make sense. Like the story is easy enough to follow, but I feel like there's just like a lot of stuff that like, they just don't really bother explaining or telling you. Like for example, like this isn't really a spoiler, but like in the beginning, it's just like a cold open of like these people in this carriage, and you have like no idea who they are. Like obviously you get the idea that one of them is like this salesman guy, but like, I don't know, I have no idea like who these other two are, why they're traveling with them, why they're like kind of like so hostile to him. Like, I don't know, it's really strange. And then I think there are like other instances throughout the movie where it's just kind of like, all right, who are these people? Why are they making these choices? It just didn't really feel like it was super clear. So yeah, I don't know. A few cool things here and there. I like seeing Christopher Lee as always, but overall, I just thought this one was pretty weak.
I think I disagree a little bit on a few things. Not so much the overall, like, I'm not going to really say the movie's that good overall. I do think the back half in particular is pretty weak, and as you said, the ending is just like nonsensical. I will say many things when we get to that, but I do actually think the first half is a bit more interesting. Especially since I thought it was going to do a repeat of the last one, because one of the main things in the last one is that there was like a young couple in love, and that the dad of the daughter was, not super far, or maybe it was like the uncle in the last one, but either way, same kind of idea, and it was kind of about winning over the dad, right? This movie, it almost felt like it was going to do that, because once it goes to the main cast, it introduces some characters, and there's a young woman, and there's a boy that she likes, and they get home, and it felt like the dad was just like a more dick version of what was in the last movie, where he's like, oh, you're acting like a harlot, flirting with a boy, no, you're not allowed to go out for like a week, you get up to your room now, and that's kind of his attitude, and he's a complete asshole. However, we then follow him and his friends instead of the young characters, and they become the focus, because they're actually secretly kind of, not a cult, but like, they're in like a secret society where they get up to lots of bad things, including going to a brothel and wanting to like try darker things and whatnot. I actually thought that was a little bit interesting and a bit of a swerve as to the type of characters we're following. Yeah. And that was a different introduction to get to the Dracula stuff. So I didn't even mind that there wasn't really any Dracula for quite a bit in the movie. I was kind of into that. And I wasn't even that upset with what the premise of what Dracula was doing when we do get to that point. I think more so it just kind of like defaults into certain things in the second half. The characters that kind of become the main characters feel like they weren't ever set up to be the main characters. Stuff like that was more of a problem for me. But what I will disagree with you on, though, is you said this is easily the worst one. I don't think I can agree with that. I think Brides of Dracula is definitely worse.
I don't remember it enough to I guess stick up for it.
So I win then. Okay, yeah. Thank you. I will take my trophy.
I didn't think it was a competition, but yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe if I rewatched our review or something, maybe it would jog some memory. But yeah, I don't know. It's maybe that one was worse. I understand what you're saying. Like, I wouldn't mind like the inherent premise of it. Like, it's not like I need this to be like the big Dracula movie. Like, I'd be totally fine if he's more in the background, and again, maybe it's just we're doing more interesting things with the blood. Like, yeah, that could have been cool, but I feel like just nothing really paid off for that, like in the second half or whatever. So it doesn't really do much for me.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but I was into the build up though. Like, the fact that it doesn't pay off in the second half is like, that's a fair complaint, but I was enjoying it well enough up until a certain point, and then it went kind of downhill, and it felt like it kind of whimpered out on some of the things it was doing. And part of it was because I didn't really know where it was going with some of the stuff it was doing. So it was almost a shame that it became more conventional in the second half when it just kind of settled into. I mean, there's a couple of little differences to what usually happens, but not a great extent by any means. I think when it comes to things not being explained for me, I don't think there's anything wrong with not knowing who the characters are in the cold open. After all, it's a cold open. That said, though, a couple of them do act a bit weird, as if there's like more of a story to them, but then it's never really addressed or brought up. So that's fair play. For me, there was
I don't don't need to know their life story or anything, obviously, but yeah, like you said, like it seems like we're kind of dropped into the middle of a conversation, and like I couldn't help but wonder, like, okay, yeah, why are they being so weird to this guy and like kicking him out and stuff, like. And that's just one example. Like, there's other stuff when we get into spoilers that I want to talk about them, like kind of not really sure about like some people's motivations and stuff. That'll be more spoiler stuff.
For me, there was like certain like logical or like mythology things that I wasn't sure how certain things worked, in terms of some people are technically vampires because they've been bit, but some people haven't been bit, but they're still just acting like they're a vampire. And there's some weird inconsistencies. Like, they really weren't taking their own rules seriously. And I love rules in a horror movie.
Of course, yeah.
I hate when they're not followed or taken seriously.
Now, I don't know if this has ever been brought up before, but do you like rules in real life?
I mean, it depends on the rules. I mean,
if you're at the mall and someone says no skateboarding, do you like pick up your skateboard and say like "F you, man"?
I can't say I do. No, I'm okay with no skateboarding at the mall.
Okay.
But I'm a fan of no murder. That's a good one. That's a good rule.
Oh yeah, I always forget about that rule.
Oh, do you? Do you indeed? I need to let a cat in, so you're gonna have to talk to the audience, Tim.
All right. Well, as Pete was saying, we live in a society, people. So I guess one thing I like about horror movies is when it turns to night and the sun goes down and the moon comes up. I always think that's a nice setting for horror movies.
Okay, first of all, this sounds inane, whatever you were saying. Secondly, it's a weird thing to say about this movie because most of the nighttime stuff is day for night, and it's really obviously day for night. Which we've said this in prior Hammer Dracula movies, but having a movie about a vampire where the daylight is like a lethal element and a big plot device that can be used at any point, and like, you can only come out during night, you can't come out during day. Having it be unclear if it's night or not because they do day for night and I can't actually tell is kind of a problem. But that's been a problem in a lot of these Hammer movies up until this point. Yeah. This was just a done thing. For some reason, they were so like we can't rent some lights and shoot at nighttime. No, we have to. We have to shoot in the day because the crew won't work. We have to pay the crew extra for overtime or something if they're doing night shoots. Yeah. Stupid.
Hammer, what are you doing?
I don't think I'm doing anything anymore, but there's a reason why they went under. All these crappy night shoots or day for night shoots. That's what's put them under. Honestly, like, other than the spoilers, I don't know if there's much else to say, really, about this.
Nope.
Okay, you can tell we're super enthusiastic. I mean, we only have another 3 or 4 of these to go, so this is...
Oh, really? Yeah. It's, I didn't look up how many there were, so...
I'll double check. I don't remember off the top of my head, but there's definitely a few more left. Because we were on the 5th one, and we have 1, 2, 3, we have 4 left, apparently. Although, the last one doesn't sound... Oh, Van Helsing's in it, so I guess that connects it. Yeah. So I guess the last one's like another Brides of Dracula is what I'm trying to say.
Stepdaughters of Dracula.
Where it's different people.
I don't know why that just sounds like porny.
That's just because the internet's trained you that step anything is potential sexual partner.
Yeah. So, ooh, you gotta check out this new stepladder video. So, ooh, sounds hot.
Very good, Tim. Very good. So yeah, we got a few left, but yeah. Well, I know that we're going through these super quick. It has been a year since we did the last one, so it's not like we're firing through at super speed or anything. So yeah, we'll get to the rest. It does mean it's going to be a while before we get to like Hammer Frankenstein or anything, but you know we'll get there. We'll get there. All right. So spoilers for Taste the Blood of Dracula. You have been warned from this point on. So the opening of the movie is the salesman character who tries to sell a snow globe to the 2 other characters riding in this carriage. And one of the characters in the carriage starts staring at him and then puts out his hands and basically says, "Give me." And it's very clear that this character is mentally ill in some way. And the other guy who's riding with the mentally ill character says, "You better give him what he wants." I'm like, is that a threat? Like, are you going to unleash this person on the salesman? And sure enough, yeah, the guy lunges forward and throws him out the back of the carriage. I'm not going to read too much into it. I can only assume this isn't very good in terms of like aging well. This feels feels like, you know, a very old mentality. It just doesn't linger on it long enough to stop and go, oh, this is horrible how they're presenting this character. It's quick and you get through it enough that it's whatever, but it's yeah.
I mean, maybe. I mean, I do think it's like weird that we're just dropping in on these people all of a sudden, but I mean, yeah, it probably is better that we don't see too much more of them. Yeah,
it could be very problematic, but this is all just set up for why this guy's in the woods. The salesman's kind of stumbling through, and he happens to stumble into the end of the last movie, where Dracula, if you recall, had a big...
Yes. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, so this was funny because honestly, I couldn't really tell you much about the last movie, but as soon as we saw this, I was like, oh yeah, he, like, I feel like, yeah, the last one ended with him is either part of a castle or part of the church falling on him, and
it was
basically just stabbing him.
The big gold cross, yeah, the big gold cross fell off and stabbed him, and that's where we sort of just catch him here. We catch him just wailing in pain as this big gold cross is to like through him.
It is kind of funny that this like weird random salesman just kind of stumbles upon Dracula as he's like just having this like fit as he's dying. He's just like screaming like ah.
Yeah, but if anything, I thought this might just be a cameo in this movie. If not for the fact that his face was on the poster, I might have thought, oh, he's just here to set up the story, and then it's going to be more of like a, you know, Jason Goes to Hell type movie where people are drinking the blood of Dracula and crazy things are happening because of that. But this explains how he comes across the blood of Dracula, as well as some of his other things. They really focus on this clasp that has his name on it. Yeah. And I'm like, did he ever have that in the previous movies? Maybe it was always there and I just missed it, but I feel like they've just made this up. That there's a clasp that says Dracula on it that was on his cloak.
Yeah. And it's for people that like walked into the movie 5 minutes late and wasn't sure what they're seeing.
I mean, when they walked into a movie they paid for called Taste the Blood of Dracula, they might be confused as to why there's someone called Dracula in the movie.
I mean, you know, back in the day, some people would just walk in and say, hey, give me a ticket for what's next, and then don't even tell me the title, just give me the ticket.
I think that was just Tarantino that did that. I don't think anyone else was doing that. And he wasn't doing it in 1970. He'd have been, I don't know, the age he was, 5. But regardless. So then we meet our main characters. We cut to a church in the middle of the town, and we have our main... Well, what seems like our main characters are going to be Alice and Paul, who are this young couple. Alice has got sort of a grumpy asshole father. Paul wants to like run away with her. And it's all just very much that. However, we really focus instead on her father, William, and his 2 friends. One of whom is the father of her other friend as well. I think the other one's the
Lucy.
father of a guy, as well. Because, Lucy's got a boyfriend, and he's the son of, like, the 3rd guy. But, like, so there's 3...
And, I mean, just a minor quibble, I guess, but I feel like Lucy is so tied to, like, the, original Dracula book, / movie, whatever. Like, I don't know, I feel like you can't do another, like, Dracula movie with a character named Lucy. Like, just pick a different name.
Yeah. I mean, it's not unrealistic that there's someone else named Lucy. It's a pretty common name, but yeah. I don't know. Did the first Dracula movie in this series have a Lucy, though? Maybe it was just a Mina and that. I don't remember.
Well, yeah, see, that's what I don't remember. So part of me was kind of wondering, like, I wonder if they didn't have Lucy in the other movie, so this was, hey, let's use the name since we haven't used it yet. But I don't know. It distracted me for like a second, so I'm gonna complain about it.
But anyway, so we have these 3 wealthy kind of men, right? And there's a whole big deal when he gets home with his daughter and wife, where he rips into her for daring to flirt with a boy at church. And she's in big trouble. He's a complete dick, calls her a harlot. The wife tries to calm him down, but he's having none of it. But the big deal that's made here is that this is the last Sunday of the month, and she's like, oh, supper will be ready at so-and-so. And he's like, no, it's the last Sunday of the month. I'm never home on the last Sunday for supper every month, right? It's charity night.
Nothing suspicious about that, wife.
He does charity work. He goes to a soup kitchen. However, what we find out as he goes to the soup kitchen with his 2 friends in a carriage, the soup kitchen's a front. They go through a door in the back, and there's a brothel, immediately making this character, William, a complete and utter hypocrite for belittling his daughter for daring to just flirt with someone when he's going to have to hang out with hookers all night. But I think what got me about his character, though, is he looks just miserable no matter what he's doing. The entire time he's with prostitutes, he's having booze, whatever, he's with his friends, he looks like he's having a terrible time no matter what. That's his character.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm assuming that some of this stuff was intentional, but like there's definitely some interesting points that can be made about this. Like you have kind of like the hypocrisy of kind of like wealthy, like rich church going people that like like to put on this front and airs, but then are secretly doing this debaucherous stuff. And then there's stuff you could make about like kind of female empowerment, where you have like this woman who's being controlled by this man, and
Wait,
I can see.
You mean her dad?
Yeah.
Okay, just
yeah. So I don't know, like I feel like it's setting you up for like some possibly like interesting ideas, that it's like, oh, this movie could be more than just like a schlocky 70s horror flick or whatever. Like they might actually be having some interesting stuff to say, but I feel like it sets some possibly interesting stuff that doesn't really do much for it or has much payoff for me.
I mean, I think there is a lot of interesting things with this setup, though. I mean, like, the idea that they pretend they're doing charity work for the homeless, but they actually just go through a door to just live in a life of luxury that their wives can't know about. And even the idea that William clearly is not all that excited about any of this, which, to be fair, is intentional, because it plays into this idea that they're kind of bored. Like, they've been getting away with this for years, it seems like, and they've done a little bit of... not satanic ritual, they don't say that, but they kind of imply that like they've got a bit of a club and they kind of like say they worship other things, which is important when we get introduced to this other character that comes into it in a minute. But it's very much this like this front that's being presented and what they're actually up to behind closed doors. But not just that, this idea that after enough time, this isn't enough anymore. And there's this pursuit for the greater greed, for the greater pleasure, the greater high. It's a little bit Hellraiser, actually. It's, it's looking for that next level of pleasure. It's, they need to find that new pleasure point. And, instead of the Cenobites, they get Dracula, which isn't a terrible idea, I suppose, in a sense. Especially since they're so attracted to the idea of new power when this other character comes in. Was it Lord Courtley? Courtley? Was the name of the character?
About right. Yeah, probably. It's kind of hard to tell because it feels like he is going to be a much bigger driving force in the movie, but he really isn't. Well,
he is up until a certain point, right? He is, because in this first half of the movie, he feels like that absolutely, because he comes into the brothel, he's walking in like just every single room and just checking out, and basically what he's doing is he's checking all the girls, and he's just going to pick one even if they're already with someone else, because he apparently has that power. And we didn't even mention that the guy who runs this brothel is this really camp guy who's like quivering and is like trying to like do whatever the guests want. He's been really nice to the three rich guys because they're his best customers, and he's scared of upsetting them and all that kind of thing. So he really
fun character.
He really tries to stop Courtley from going into their room, because they've got the big fancy private room, and they've got like 3 prostitutes in there. There's also one in the middle dancing, and they're feeding each other grapes. And I think when he walks in, our main guy Williams on all fours, and the prostitutes like on his back riding him like a horse. So whatever the rich and filthy want to get up to. I will say this snake dance was like the least sexy thing I've ever seen. I'm like, damn, I don't know if this is like what a movie in 1970 just thinks is sexy for the screen, or if this is what people actually thought was sexy back at the turn of the century. But either way, it's not for me.
A woman plus snake is usually a pretty, safe bet. But
no, is it really? People aren't into that?
I think so. As long as it's like a woman and her like step snake, it's usually.
Oh dear. So anyway, Courtley comes in. Everyone's kind of all offended, but he just basically waggles his finger at the woman who's with William, and she just smiles and comes right over, and he leaves. And William says, "Get rid of all the girls. We want to have a conversation." Right? So the guy gets rid of all the girls, and then they ask the guy, what do you call it? Because he's like the mistress, but he's not obviously the mistress because he's a guy. But he's not like he's a pimp either. I don't know what to call this guy. But
like the mister?
The mister, right? And they're like, hey, who is that guy? Explain who he is. We want to know. And he explains to them that he basically was caught years ago. He's part of a wealthy family, but he was caught years ago doing like black magic or worshipping Satan in a church or something like that. And ever since, he's been kind of this like ostracized member of society. And they're like, okay, but how does he make money? He's clearly wealthy. And he's like, oh, he doesn't work, not a day. He's never worked a day in his life. He's like, well, what's happening here? And he explains that no, the girls here just worship him. They think he's fascinating, and they just gravitate towards him. Like, he's not even paying them. That was one of the things that this guy was saying to Courtley as he was coming in. Is like, no, like, you have to pay if you come in here. It's clear that this guy walks in and never pays for anything. He just like, the women just flock to him, and he like waggles his finger, and that's it. And these 3 men are like, instead of being like horrified at this is actually them going, oh, how did he get this power? We want a taste of this. And they obviously assume that his black magic or whatever he's done with satanic rituals has led to him having this power. So they get a taste for it, they want it, so they intentionally invite him out for supper after he's done his deed, he's done his business, he's come out, he's zipped up, he's ready to go. And they go to dinner, and they basically say, hey, I mean, Courtley even kind of guesses, he's like, oh, you 3 have got a bit of a club, you keep up a really nice public image for your family and for society, but you're actually doing all this shit behind closed doors, and you're bored. You need something better. You need something more pleasurable. And they're like, yep. Okay, what would you suggest? So this leads us to what the main plot of the movie is that he knows where this salesman is, and he's like, he's got something that will allow us to do a ritual that will give us all everything we want. You know, we'll basically be selling our souls to the devil, but we'll be immortal and we'll have pleasure forever. And that's what's going to happen. So they get a taste of this. Yeah, yes.
Doesn't sound too bad.
I mean, depending what the given the soul means exactly.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if he just meant here that Dracula would make them vampires. He just never wanted to say it that way. But regardless, he takes them to the salesman, and he doesn't tell them what they're buying until the salesman like gets out this trunk and is like, this vial of like red powder is the blood of Dracula. And like one of the three guys, who I want to say was Jonathan, or maybe he was the son. Either way, he is like, Dracula, I know about this, I've heard about this. He was like one of the most evil men who ever lived. He's awful, he's evil incarnate. But they all agree to chip in and pay the 1,000 whatever currency they were using. I don't even Lethe or something. I don't know what it said. It was something like that.
Sure.
No? Okay.
Credits? I don't know.
It wasn't credits. But yeah, so they agree to do all this. They agree to have the ritual. But I did think all this build-up was intriguing to me. Like this idea that they're seeking this new thing. There's been talked into this ritual. And I genuinely didn't know what was going to happen once they did this ritual. Is it just going to bring Dracula back to life? Or is it going to be something different where they kind of inherit some of the powers of Dracula and that leads to some bad things? Or what? What actually happens, though, when they go out to this old abandoned church or wherever it is to do this ritual is that they get out their goblets, Curtly cuts his hand and puts a little bit of his blood into the blood powder of Dracula, which makes it magically turn into a full glass of blood, and it just kind of bubbles up, right? And the three guys chicken out and say, we don't want to drink this, how about you drink it first? And Curtly does, and Curtly is quite happy to. He's excited about it. He's very like eager to do all this stuff. He starts.
I love blood.
He starts to wince in pain and crawl on all fours and beg for help, and he's reaching out to them, and they're just sort of like saying, "Oh shit, it's a good thing we never drank that. This was clearly a bad idea." And then they get scared of him coming after them because he's crawling towards them. That they start beating him to death with their canes, and they seemingly kill him. So yes, Lord Curtly here didn't go out the way I thought he would. I thought he would be like the Renfield of this movie, like he's like wants to help Dracula or something like that.
Well, I mean, that's what I was saying when like I thought he was going to be more of a driving force. Like I agree, he's sets all these events up in motion and everything, but he's really only in these like two scenes. Like it doesn't feel like he's as big a presence in the movie as I kind of assumed he would when he is making this big grand entrance and everything.
Oh sure, I mean, I think it's a lot of screen time. As much as it's only a couple of scenes, they are long ass scenes. And I would also say that I wouldn't have a problem. Like, I don't really have a problem with the rest of this movie being Dracula comes back to life and he wants revenge on the three men because they killed his servant, right? I mean, that's a bit of a weird turn, but that still makes him feel important. Like his death is still leading to what the rest of the plot is. So I'm kind of okay with that. I think it's everything else from this point on that it kind of rubs me the wrong way and doesn't quite work for me. Especially since, so they beat him to death, they get scared and they run away. What happens is that some... Oh, you go, Tim, what's it?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if I missed something, though, but what exactly was his relationship to Dracula? Like,
I don't think he has one. I think he's aware of him and he worships, like... evil figures and satanic figures. I think he just knows of them. I mean, unless they're implying that he somehow knew Dracula before and did work for him in the past.
Okay, so when you were saying that he was if Dracula was getting revenge for his servant, you didn't mean he was literally his servant. You just mean if the movie went in that direction.
No, I was quoting Dracula. Dracula says that.
Oh, so he was his servant then.
Well, I think when Dracula says it, he knows, like, from beyond the grave that this guy was becoming his new servant by doing all this to bring him back. That's how I took it, is that this guy was my servant in death kind of thing.
Oh, okay, I got you. But then, so he knew what drinking the blood was going to do?
Oh, I mean, this is something that's never explained, is why Lord Kirtley knows what any of this is or why it'll work.
Yeah.
Which I don't really care about that much. Like, I'll accept to a certain point that he is into all this stuff. He's into black magic and whatever else. He knows this fine. I'll accept that. What rubs me the wrong way, though, is that he's lying there dead, and then this mist comes in, right? And it's like a sandstorm then hits him on the floor, and he gets covered in sand and kind of turns to rock, and then the rock starts to crack and break away, and it's Count Dracula. Christopher Lee's under there now. And I was like, okay, I have questions here about these sequence of events, because what was going to happen if all four of them had drank the blood, right?
That's a question I had, yes.
That's question number one. Question two, have you taken his body to come back? And if so, why do you care that he's dead? But the fact that Dracula wants revenge for these three others that killed him would imply that he is thankful for being brought back and wants to do something about it. So, but if he needs to take a body to come back, then was he just going to take one of these guys' bodies? Was he going to take all three of these others because they were here to be sacrifices, effectively? You know, they didn't know that, but that's maybe what he was luring them into. That's a possibility, but it's strange.
Yeah, these are all the things I was thinking out throughout the movie, and I mean, honestly, I probably wouldn't care that much if it was more compelling from this point forward. I'd just be like, all right, well, Dracula's back and he's doing cool shit. Like, who cares? But I don't know. I
guess the other question as well is, like, was this the intention of the ritual, or is this just something that happened after the ritual anyway? Like, because if this was the intention of the ritual, then technically it succeeded.
That's true. Yeah.
But if that was the intention, then what was going to happen again if all four of them drank it? And if it wasn't the intention, then why did this just randomly happen after the ritual?
And also, like, would the same thing basically have happened if they didn't beat him to death?
That's another good question. Yeah, would Dracula still have taken over his body?
Yeah, because this was a thing that I did think was a little strange. Like, obviously these people are not good people, and I know that, you know, this guy is kind of scary and dark and whatever, but it seemed like a little bit of a step for me that they just, like, beat him to death. like I know he's, like, kind of, you know, like, holding his stomach and in pain and stuff, but I don't know, it didn't seem like he was, like, super threatening to me or anything.
Yeah, it's more like someone with COVID coming at you and, like, just deciding to beat them to death so you don't catch it.
Yeah,
it was kind of the vibe of the scene for me. Yeah, it's a weird. Yeah, when you actually stop and think about a lot of, like, okay, what was the intention of this ritual? Was this the expected outcome in a sense? Just it wasn't meant to be him, or like what? And if it was only going to be one of the others, then were the other two just going to be okay with the fact that their friend was, like, taken over so that someone could become Dracula?
and I mean, I must admit, you know, I was into this storyline, at least for a bit, because it did remind me of my beloved Castlevania series, because I do feel like there's quite a number of games that are focused on, like, because, you know, obviously, like, Dracula's a big bad in every game, and there's, like, 20-something games or whatever. So usually there's, like, a storyline or something about people, like, you know, needing to resurrect Dracula. So I do always like the idea of, like, yeah, like, it's interesting to me to not just have Dracula be this, you know, presence that's lording over everybody, but then, you know, the idea of, like, having, like, these underlings or whatever trying to bring him back. I think especially reminding of, like, Castlevania 2, where, like, you're going around and collecting, like, the various pieces of Dracula. And I could be wrong, but I do think you even do collect, like, a vial of blood in that game, I want to say. So I wonder if that was inspired by this. Again, I think it's more interesting setup than what actually happens.
What a horrible night for a curse.
There you go.
I know about Castlevania too.
Yeah. I'll go on the record as being a big defender for that game. I feel like a lot of people give it shit. Like there's like some very like stuff that is frustrating that you would just never know how to do. But if you're playing it in a modern way and you can look stuff up and figure things out, I actually think it's a pretty fun game. But yeah.
I'm not getting into this fight. I don't have a dog in the race. That's fine. Yeah, so the movie from here kind of like is like, okay, let's reintroduce the daughter, let's reintroduce Paul, and what's the daughter's name again? Alice. Yeah, like, so he comes and sees her at his window, and they're hanging out with Lucy and her boyfriend, and like, hey, let's go to this party like tomorrow night or whatever. So it's all just kind of reestablishing them, and then like the dad, William, has been drunk, and they're talking about how like all their dads are acting weird and out of character. There's a meeting with the dads at one point where they basically say, all right, I looked into it, and like no one really goes out to that old church, so we're probably in the clear. Like no one will find the dead body, which, you know, it's interesting. This is because I was still kind of interested at this point, because I thought, oh, okay, Dracula's coming after them for revenge, which is a little bit different than him just trying to seduce, you know, an ex-victim. Like, he's got more of a motivation, even if I don't really understand why he's so passionate about his servant when he could just get another one.
Sure.
He is Dracula, but I guess it's just like, oh no, you slighted something that he saw as his property, so he's coming to get you. But the big turning point here is that Alice sneaks out of the house to go to this party, even though her dad says she can't go. And when she comes back and sneaks back in her window, the dad's standing there waiting, and he's very upset. And I felt like this movie, like, at any point, could have done the whole, he's starting to like feel bad about who he is, and maybe he starts to apologize or whatever. No, he is a prick until the bitter end, because he comes up with like a belt or something and says, I have not beat the shit out of you since you were a little girl. I'm going to punish you for this disobedience. And the daughter, who's like, close to 18 at this point, is like, if you touch me, I'll never forgive you. Like, this is it. Like, this is, she's actually it's a pretty coherent argument she makes. Is like, this is a point of no return, Dad. Like, if you do this, like, we're done.
And there's a few parts like this where I like that she had very candid like thoughts and stuff. Like, I think there's like a scene she has with her mother, and like her mother is that type that's just like trying to
keep the peace.
And she like says like, oh, like, yeah, it's just like, that's your father, how he is. And then like she has like a line that I think she says like, well, like, you're the one that like decided to marry him, like, it's not my fault. And I just thought that was like a very interesting, like she feels like, kind of like empowering, which was cool.
She has surprising moments of agency. Which is why it's a shame that in 2 minutes' time she's going to become a mind-controlled zombie and then just be that for the rest of the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah, so she basically runs away from her dad out the window, and he like comes out chasing after her, but Dracula's waiting outside. And he goes up to her, she gets all entranced, and he goes to bite, but then the dad comes out. He's finally made his way out, and that stops it. And this is where things get a bit murky, because he doesn't bite her here. And he seemingly doesn't bite her for the rest of the movie, but she's still acting like she's under his control. I guess it's like more of a Renfield thing than an actual you've been bitten, so now you're a vampire thing. It's kind of weird. There's a couple other murky things as well. I will say, I didn't hate the trend that Dracula has of making each... Because he's got 3 people he wants revenge on. He kills them all by making their own children kill him. Like, all 3 of them die that way, which is a little bit funny. So I at least appreciate the idea there. But yeah, so, but this is the thing though, like, I don't even get the sense that she was taken over, and then he's like, okay, now Alice, and Alice swings a shovel at her dad's head and like kills him, and I'm like, okay, I guess she's under his control then. All right. And then she goes missing with him, so we get all the scenes where there's police at the house, and Paul's worried because the daughter's missing, and the policeman's not helpful at all. He's like, she's only missing. That's nothing. We're dealing with murders here, boy. And like so from here, the movie, I think, loses a sense of pacing at this point, where it feels like we're just kind of doing, I don't know, like just scene after scene of things happening, especially some weird things where at the funeral for William, right, where all the characters have went, except obviously Alice, because she's missing, she's with Dracula. she shows up like out of a bush and talks to Lucy and says, "Hey, I've been hiding. Come with me." It felt really weird that Lucy didn't like ask some more serious questions about, yeah, but your dad's dead. What, like, can we not talk about that? Everyone else thinks you're missing, like, as in, like, maybe possibly dead somewhere. Maybe you should, you know, like, she just sort of smiles and says, "Oh, have you got a new boyfriend you've eloped with? Yeah, let me go meet him." Like, she's just super into it immediately. Yeah. And she's so peppy. And I'm like, this makes no sense. There's just been a murder and she's been missing for days. Why are you acting so calm like you're a pair of 13-year-olds?
It's also, like, strange because, yeah, she keeps saying, like, "Oh, are we going to, like, your lover's, like, house or castle or whatever?"
I mean, yeah, is she expecting a threesome? Like, what was she expecting when they get there?
But I don't think she ever asks, like, "Oh, did something happen with Paul?" Because I assume that she knows, like, her and Paul are kind of a, like,
yeah, I mean, there were
a little bit of a thing. Like,
there was
I don't know if they're official.
There was a scene where they were riding horses. They were basically on a double date. Like,
yeah.
She absolutely knows that Paul's wanting to marry her and run away with her. Doesn't even bring it up once. Doesn't question a goddamn thing. And all it is, of course, is Alice is luring her out to that church, and then Dracula pops out, and Lucy kind of resists a little bit, but ultimately is able to just sort of go, "No, Lucy, look at me," and then you know, trances her enough that he bites her, and she actually does become a vampire, which does raise another question I had. This is a little bit later, admittedly. But basically, when Dracula's decided he's done with her, i.e. he's had her kill her father for him, which comes up in a bit, he then decides to just bite her again and drain her of all of her blood, killing her. And I'm like, wait a minute, she's already a vampire. Can you feed off vampire blood? That feels like we're playing with rules here a little bit in a way that I don't quite like.
I mean, it could be an interesting idea if, again, if you're doing something more with it. But yeah, it's just kind of like something that he very casually does, and then we're done with it.
I tell you this, if vampires can feed off other vampires, I feel like a lot of vampire fiction would have a lot of more like facets to deal with, of like vampires who just kill other vampires, which makes them even worse than the other vampires and other stuff. But here it's not even like a thing they think about. It's just that just happens, that's it, it's over.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I could see, like, you know, a different movie or story that could do something interesting with that. Like, maybe, yeah, like other vampires can't do it, but like Dracula is, you know, such like a step above like your regular vampire or something, that, you know, maybe he has that. Or, you know, again, you have things like Blade 2 where they have like, you know, those kind of like other creatures that come out that are like, you know, that feed on vampires. Like, they're not, I guess, technically vampires themselves, but like a new breed or whatever. So there's stuff you could do with that and stuff that could be interesting. But again, you know, this movie isn't really exploring that.
Yeah, the lead up to that, though, where she kills her father, is because her father's one of the other two rich guys, and the two rich guys that are left come out to this church to check the body, because now they're like concerned that, you know, something's happening to them because the other guy's dead. So they come out and they go looking through like the crypts and stuff, and they find Lucy asleep in the crypt. And immediately the other guy is like, "Hey, she's got bite marks on her neck. She's not alive or dead anymore. She's a vampire. She's a child of the night. We have to stake her and put her out of her misery and like end it all." And he goes and just grabs a bit of wood and a rock to stake her in the heart. And then Lucy's dad pulls out a handgun and says, "Don't you dare," and then shoots him in the arm and tells him to get lost. Which is interesting enough. I think the problem here is that you've not sold me on the idea that these two characters fundamentally understand that they're dealing with vampires yet, because they've barely talked about vampires, and they've barely like, it felt like we're just jumping to these things because the audience already knows what a vampire is, and we already know like the rules in theory. The characters do too, but they shouldn't. They really don't.
I mean, it might make more sense. Like the one guy said he, like, you know, he knew a little bit about Dracula or whatever. So I mean, maybe it'd make more sense if one of them, you know, explain like, oh, like Dracula's supposed to be a vampire or something, or if they let on that they actually knew a bit more about what he is and maybe why they're worried about, you know, his blood and him being resurrected or whatever.
I think more specifically, you really have to sell the idea that his daughter is now like just a husk to be a slave to him and not actually alive, and like why we should kill her. It's not just that she's going to hurt other people, it's that she is effectively being like tormented forever by being a vampire in some way, you know, and really sell that idea, really have that debate. But of course they don't. And of course the dad character actually does already decide that he has to kill her. He just wants to do it himself because he goes to stake her like right after he makes the other guy leave. And I'm like, you just shot him in the arm to make him leave? Couldn't you have just said, let me do it, I'm her dad, it should be me? Because he probably would have just had the stake over and said, on you go then, I'll just stand back over here. But instead, the sad sack of shit, she wakes up and then Dracula walks in the room somehow, just, you know, off camera, and she kills him. Not by biting him, no. None of the men that are getting revenged upon are killed with vampire bites. They're all killed with either being stabbed or bashed in the head or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and they're not. I don't know. I mean, I know it's like, you know, you know, it's the 70s and stuff. You know, very early 70s. So like, you're not gonna have like ultra gory, you know, kills or whatever. But I don't know. I didn't really think any of them were that interesting.
I thought the shovel one was okay, just because it felt, you know,
it was a little more visceral, and it had like that. You saw him with like a big gash on his face afterwards. But
I tell you, because I think my thing here with this back half of the movie is I actually like the revenge element of it. I think what lets the whole thing down for me is just how Dracula is interacting with these ladies, and the fact that one's a vampire and working for him, the other one's not a vampire yet and working for him. You know, what the rules are with this. The way the characters are now reacting to all this is where it gets let down for me. If it was more of like just an impending doom where, no, he's coming for you, and it's like them trying to like make themselves safe, but like they never even get a chance because they never really know that he's coming for the most part. Like by the time that they know he's coming, two of them are already dead. Like obviously the third guy kind of has a good idea now that he's in danger because the other two are dead, but that's it. Like that's it gone.
It just kind of feels very like sloppy to me.
It's like, yeah, I don't think the concept's bad, but I think how it all comes together is so sloppy here. But it feels like it could use an extra at least 20 minutes, if not like more than half an hour, to flesh out like all the revenge side of this and how Dracula's infiltrating their families and turning members of their family so that they're not just killed, they're killed by their own kids who now work for him. Like, I've taken your child for my own. Especially in the context of the main guy, William, who by the way, I thought it was weird that he died first of the three because he was the main one.
He seems,
like, he should have been last.
Yeah.
But the idea that he started this movie off by saying, no, you can't be with a young man. The kind of the subtext of that being, I will not have a young man take my daughter away from me, only for Dracula to do it literally, like to brainwash her and take her away from him. And then use her as a weapon against them. Like, I can almost see a good thematic like through line there, but it's just sort of all done so quickly once we get to the revenge stuff, and some of it just doesn't make sense from the Dracula and controlling people aspect. You know, there's not a consistent sort of like rule set we can follow. Like everyone's a little bit different, and it makes it harder to get into it, which is a shame.
Yeah, I think like similar to that as well. I was a little surprised like with how. I mean, I guess we kind of mentioned it earlier, but like how fast Alice becomes like, you know, his, I guess, servant or whatever, like, you know, enthralled by him. Because again, similar to like how you're saying, like, oh yeah, William's the first to go. Like, it seems like she's kind of the main character, so you know, it's kind of like almost like a stand-in for like, you know, Mina from, you know, original Dracula or whatever. Like, so it seems like maybe the plot would be more like slowly leading up to her, like, you know, getting seduced and taken over by him.
It's really strange because so the whole thing with like her not being bitten when Dracula goes to bite her and then she's not been bitten, okay, that's whatever, but like 2 nights later, after a lot of other stuff happens, he goes to bite her and gets interrupted again, and all I could think was, wait, you've been wanting to bite her? She's been like hiding with you for like 2 days. Other than a few specific instances when she's left to go and lure someone back here or something like that, you've been alone with her. Why haven't you bit her neck in that time? Why have you waited like 2 days to do it? Were you just full up because you bit Lucy and you're like, no, I'm too full now. I need to wait until my appetite comes back.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some weird like inconsistencies there. So just to set up a couple of things so we can get to the ending. The other guy who's the son of the third remaining rich guy, the one that Lucy was dating, he ends up getting bitten by Lucy, right? This is before Lucy's killed by Dracula. She bites him and he kills his dad. But his dad did leave a note for Paul, who effectively becomes the main character. And I think this was the other problem I had with the back half of the movie, is that Paul effectively becomes the protagonist because he's the one that's going out to try and stop Dracula and hopefully save Alice if she's still alive. But he's been just such a like minor character throughout the movie. Yeah. He's been consistent. He's been around here or there, but he's always felt like a minor character. So it felt like all of a sudden him being the hero who's going to get Alice. One, it feels very cliched because it's just, it's her love interest coming to save her. Oh, I've never seen that before. But two, he's barely been focused on, so it doesn't even feel like a good version of that. And then the climax itself, when he's in the castle, he puts out some crucifixes. There's at one point he holds up a cross at Dracula, and you can tell there's someone off camera with a giant reflector, like beaming light at Dracula's face. So it's like a beam of light hitting him, and he's like and all that.
And then I thought it did look kind of cool though, like because it looks like the cross is like glowing and something. It's very bright, and it was a cool effect.
But I think the two big things to talk about here, and again, things that murky up all of this just to make it feel unsatisfying. One, Alice goes back to normal like really easily, like with almost like all it took was like, I think Dracula like pushes her away or something because like, oh, you're just my servant, get out of here. That and then a cross like being on the floor, it basically just snaps her out of it, and then she's helping Paul, and I'm like, well, we couldn't have had Paul like sort of like plead to her and like sort of like snap her out of it by saying, hey, I love you, Alice, and like do something with the drama where they're supposed to care about each other. She just it almost, that's the thing. Obviously, it's a supernatural thing that she's working for Dracula, but the way this scene plays it almost feels like she actually just ditched Paul for Dracula because she's got the hots for him, and then decides to go back to Paul when Dracula rejects her. That's what it feels like in the scene. I know it's not. I know it's supernatural Dracula, like, oh, I'm alluring you to me and all that, but it doesn't feel like that in the scene.
I mean, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like it would have been a much more interesting like swerve if you find out that Dracula never used any powers on her. She was just like so sick of, her controlling dad and stuff that all she really needed was like someone to kind of be like, hey, go for it. Like that would have been an interesting thing. That
would have been ballsy, and it would have been 10 times more story than she actually gets in the movie, where because once she's basically mind controlled by Dracula, which is effectively what's happening up until this point, where she just suddenly stops being mind controlled for very little reason. Like, she's basically not a character during that portion, she's just a plot device. And then at the end, when she's back to normal, she's just a damsel screaming, and it's like, oh, they're trying to survive against Dracula and hold up crosses, and there's a cross at the door, there's a cross there, there's a cross whatever. And then the ending is super baffling. Dracula ends up in the upper level of the church, right? And he's like sort of hissing, and he's like sort of like he's moving along this walkway up against the stained glass window. And he gets to the middle of the stained glass window, and he reacts like he's in pain.
Can I say, wait, before we get there though, like he's also just like throwing these, I guess like these like metal bars or whatever, like down at Paul and Alice. But like I don't know, it just seems like so weak. Like it's not like he's throwing them and they're flying through the air and then like sticking in the ground. It's just kind of like the way a normal person would throw them, just like chuck, and then they fall on the floor clang. Yeah.
Yeah, you're making me think of the big cheese boss fight from Resident Evil 4, the remake especially, when he starts throwing you the beams at you. Oh, when you're in the burning barn.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he gets to the stained glass window and he reacts in pain, and he sort of turns around, and we see that there's like a red crucifix or cross on the window. So Dracula's like, okay, I'll just elbow that and smash it. And I'm like, that's actually quite smart. You can just smash that one, so now it's not a cross anymore. Fair enough. But then for some reason, it's like the church is... Like the church regains its Christianity or something, and like he turns around and we hear sort of an angelic sort of ah, and he's looking at the church, but now it's not in ruins, now it's not derelict, now it looks like it's a fully functioning church, and Dracula screams and falls off the platform and just like turns to ash over like a series of like effect shots, and I'm like, wait, what killed him? The power of God just stepped in randomly and did it? This is stupid. It's so random. Tim, explain it to me. Give me an answer. I demand it right now, Tim. I demand it.
I mean, I wish I had some. Yeah, this is like bafflingly dumb. Yeah, I mean, I guess like I guess the thing is, you know, like vampires or I guess general evil things usually can't be on, was it consecrated ground, like,
hallowed ground or whatever, yeah,
hallowed ground, holy places or whatever. So I mean, I get that,
but he's been here the whole goddamn movie. He's been sleeping here. This has been his lair.
Is this the same like abandoned church that they've been going to like throughout the whole movie?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it doesn't make any sense why all of a sudden it's like, and like, I mean, I guess if they were doing renovations and they finally finished, but they didn't really tell anyone. I
don't understand why him smashing the. It's almost like smashing the cross pissed off God, and God's like, well, we're not having that, Mr. Dracula. I'm stepping in, and the power of Christ will compel you.
Yeah.
And he just dies. Like, no one does anything to achieve his death. And it's not even like, oh, Dracula's an idiot and like caused his own death, like slipping on a banana peel. It's not even, I mean, that would be terrible as well, but at least that would be funny and you'd understand how it happened. This is just
and like falls on a stake.
I mean, I don't remember how Dracula did in Love and It Ends, but if it's not like that,
I'm sure there's gotta be something.
Yeah, I'll be very upset. But like, this just comes out of nowhere. There's no justification for it, and it's it. It's over. The two other characters, they leave, and the credits roll.
Yeah,
that's it.
I was so upset. I mean, like there was a lot of the movie that like I wasn't feeling, but I could have forgiven a lot of it if they did have like a badass, you know, fight scene with Dracula at the end and had a cool way for him to die. Like, I mean, again, like the last movie, like it's cool that a giant cross like just falls and impales him, but yeah,
it was a bit silly, but it was fun.
Yeah, like it's over the top, but yeah, I kind of dig that. This, it was just so like random out of nowhere. It wasn't even like anything that like, you know, it's not like the characters had anything to do with it, or it was something like, you know, some type of him getting like comeuppance or something. It was, yeah, just really out of nowhere. It felt literally like they like had no idea how to end it, and they just saw like the first quick thing they could think of. They
had a second Dracula movie to make for 1970. They had to get to the next one quickly. So yeah, let's not waste time having anything make sense. Yeah, honestly, I liked the first half, I think, more than you did. So if anything, like I'm almost more annoyed and disappointed. The second half is such a mess, and especially the ending is just nonsensical. At the very least unsatisfying. Someone might give me some explanation as to why him smashing the window led to the church coming to life and like attacking him with Christianity, but regardless.
Yeah. And it's not like there was like, I don't know, if like they did it and there was like a mass going on or something, or there was like, you know, a priest there that started like shouting some, you know, Bible hymns and showing a cross at him or whatever, like I guess, yeah, that'd make a little more sense. But again, yeah, it's just like an empty church with, yeah, some like, you know, angelic choir singing or something going on in the background. But it's so stupid. It really made me mad.
Yep, it is a rough time. So one thing I'll point out, actually, because I was checking this here because I thought I recognized one of them. So it was Lucy's dad. Of the three men, Lucy's dad, I recognized him, and I recognized him because he was on a British sitcom for a long time, and all the way up till 2010, called Last of the Summer Wine, which is a sitcom about three old men who are like, you know, ancient. But you might know his voice if you've ever seen Wallace and Gromit, because he's Wallace.
Of course. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he lived from 1921 to 2017. He was 90.
Wow.
What? 96. Well, it depends when his birthday is. May have been 97 if he made it to his birthday. But yeah. So he lived
really
a long
cool.
ass time.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I was checking and seeing that he was still in stuff up till 2010, and I thought, wait a minute, he was already like pretty middle aged in this, and this is 1970. Like, what? You know, he would have been almost 50 in this movie, and he didn't pass away until 2017. That is actually nuts. So that's it. Peter Sallis is the actor I'm referring to for anyone who's curious. But yeah, interesting. I looked up the director to see if he'd done anything noteworthy. The answer is no. Nothing stuck out. But hey, so one thing, I'm trying to add new little segments to shows, Tim. I did this for a TV review today, so I'm going to make us do it as well. Right?
Okay.
In fact, I might even do like the two versions of it. All right. I want you to pick your favorite scene of the movie and tell me why. And then maybe we'll do worst scene of the movie and tell me why. If you'd like me to go first, since you've not had a chance to think of, not that I've really picked one yet, admittedly, but I at least came in knowing I was going to do this.
If you have one, go for it. I gotta think. It'll be a little tough with this one because I really did not enjoy it, but I will.
Well, that's the beauty of this, Tim. Is that even when you hated the movie, you still have to pick something that was the best scene. You know?
Yeah.
Well, definitely not from the second half. I'll say that right now.
Right.
I think for me, the best scene might be when they go to the salesman and like they see all the Dracula stuff. I think it's either that or it's when Lord Kirtley comes into the brothel. I think they both present a lot of interesting possibilities for the story. I think there's some intrigue. As like this salesman's clearly terrified of this stuff that he's selling, and you know, basically Lord Kirtley being like, "Oh, you'll be rewarded 1,000 times over for this. Like, this is worth the money." I'll pick that for the intrigue that it builds. But you don't have to pick something for a story reason. You could pick something because it's well shot, because you like the gore, because you like whatever, you know.
This might sound like a little bit of a cop out, but
the credits when it was over, it was finished. I was free.
I did like in the beginning when the salesman like stumbles upon Dracula and you just see him like just writhing in pain with the cross like going through him. Yeah, because it was just I didn't expect like, you know, to him like to stumble upon him right away. I really didn't remember much about the last movie, so I liked that I was like, oh yeah, that was kind of cool that he died that way in the last one. And then yeah, I mean, similar to what you're saying with the intrigue, it did kind of make me go like, ooh, like, all right, so what's this like the salesman's going through his stuff, like what's he gonna do with, you know, with the blood and everything. Like it started off with you know, a good note, interesting note for me.
Okay. Actually, I have another idea. I think this is probably a good thing, particularly for movies. Best... Well, which way do I want to phrase this? I was going to say best actor in the movie, but I suppose you could say best character is more of an interesting question, because that could be for multiple reasons. I'll let you interpret that how you want. I
would say I did like Alice, and I don't know, I wanted more of her character. I thought it was interesting what they were setting up for, and then I mean, I guess it is disappointing that she ends up kind of, like you said, just goes from being like this kind of strong-willed character to just a mindless zombie. But I don't know, I did like when we were spending time with her in the beginning. I thought she seemed like, you know, a good likable main character for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'd have said her before we talked about it, but you pointing out that she actually had these moments of agency where she's actually like calling her mother out for like putting up with the dad's bullshit and saying, "Hey, he stomped all the life out of you. I'm not going to let it happen to me." Like, no, she actually is making good points. So I can actually see the justification for picking her. So I think I'll agree. I think
especially like if you're thinking about like in terms of, I guess, you know, the quote unquote like good guys or main characters. I mean, obviously, when she's Dracula's puppet or whatever, you know, she's not good, but like, she's much more interesting than Paul. Like, if he's the other kind of main adversary or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, to be fair, you can pick a villain. A villain can be your favorite character.
I mean, I guess it does feel a little wrong not to say Christopher Lee as Dracula, but
it's so limited in this, though.
Yeah, and if I'm gonna be honest, like I love Christopher Lee. I think he's a terrific actor, and he, you know, is very iconic as Dracula. But I don't know if it's the script doesn't give him enough to do, or
it's just a paycheck this time, and he's just here to do his few scenes, go home.
Yeah, like I don't want to say he's like completely phoning it in, because you know I think he's a professional and he does what he needs to do, but it doesn't feel as like as imposing as he does in the other movies. Like even when they do the close up with his eyes, you know, like those kind of hypnotic scenes that like have become very iconic when it's just the close up of the eyes and stuff. Like even those didn't really feel like as as enticing or whatever that they usually are.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Worst scene, I think. I mean, you probably agree. It's just the ending, probably, because it's
of course,
the most nonsensical thing in the whole movie. Yeah. I don't know if we want to do worst character. I mean, it's probably Paul, but
yeah, he's just like a blank slate. Like, I mean, if you're looking at like the reality of the characters, it would be the dad because he's such a piece of shit. But like, at least he is interesting.
No, because there's a difference between he's a bad person and he's a bad character. Right.
Yeah,
he's arguably a good character as being a piece of shit. Like that's what the character is.
Yeah.
You can't fault that.
Right. Yeah, Paul is just very boring.
Okay. All right. I think that worked well, and it leads us nicely into the final question, which is, what were you going to rate the movie out of 10?
This is probably going to sound pretty harsh, but I did think the movie was pretty disappointing. I do agree that there is like some pretty interesting stuff set up in the first half that like, but ultimately it just doesn't really matter if it doesn't go anywhere or there's no payoff for it. Like I could easily see like where there could have been branches to really interesting stuff, and if the movie wanted to focus more on it and go in different directions, I could actually see some pretty cool ideas. I mean, if anything, like, this is a movie I could see maybe being remade and have someone kind of taking the essence of what's good about it and like really trying to do more interesting and nuanced things to it. But to me, it was just like just weird decisions being made and stuff not really being explained enough or not having enough context for certain things. I just felt like there's a lot of times where I'm questioning, like, all right, but why is this really happening? Again, to go back to that word sloppy, it just feels like maybe there wasn't like a ton of thought put into it. Even the stuff that usually would be more redeeming, like obviously having Christopher Lee or like some type of like big bombastic ending, like even that stuff was really weak in this movie. So I don't know, I think I'm gonna go as low as a 3.5. I know I was really disappointed, and I mean again, it's kind of a stupid thing to get excited about, but I thought the title was so it just had such a badass title, and then there's enough interesting stuff in the beginning that I was really excited to see where it goes, but then it just kind of felt like it kept disappointing me in like every turn.
I will say, I don't think I expected the title to be so literal. I thought it was just a fancy title, but they do literally, someone does drink the blood of Dracula, so I can't fault the title. I think for me, I'm not going to be as harsh. I think for me, this is more scraping into like just a 5 out of 10 for me. I think there's enough interesting stuff in the first half that does feel like it's doing something different than the others, the sequels, that is. Because obviously the first movie was great. Like that was a genuinely great sort of classic. But I think the fourth one, Risen from the Grave, is better than this overall, although I think the ideas this one presents early on are more interesting. It just fails to actually capitalize on them, and instead actually does some really annoying things in the second half of the movie. But I do think it's better than Blood of Dracula, and I think I might like it more than Prince of Darkness, because I really didn't like Prince of Darkness either. I remember really being down on that. That was the third one, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while since we did them, and as I get older, my memory's just not what it used to be. So I probably would need to. I don't know if I need to rewatch the whole movie, but maybe if I listen to our reviews or something, I might spark my memories of the movies more. But yeah, I do remember the last, at least the last one. I think it had some more interesting things, and obviously, yeah, the first one's much better than any of these other ones so far.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to go back and look to see what your rating. I mean, your rating of Prince of Darkness was a 4.5. So, I mean, you are on track to say you like this one less. You rated it lower, so
yeah,
fair.
Sounds about right.
I gave that one a 4. This one I'm giving a 5. I think the last one we both gave something in about a 6-ish too, which sounds fair. So yeah, there you go. That is Taste the Blood of Dracula. We'll be back to the next movie in the Hammer Dracula series sometime in the future. Maybe by the end of the year, maybe it'll be sometime spring next year or something. Doesn't really matter, but we will get to it and we're slowly picking away at them. But yeah, next time on the show, you're probably curious what's coming. We're back to a 2024 release. We're finally, I think, ready to get to Abigail because it's becoming more available. I.e., it's not a $20 rental anymore, is what we mean by that. We're still waiting for a few other movies to kind of go down in price like that as well, but Abigail is up next on the docket. So
yeah, believe it should be on Peacock by the time we're reviewing it. So
that's cool.
5-10 people that have that streaming service, you can check it out there. Actually, I do stick up for Peacock. I actually think it's a pretty good streaming service, but yeah, I don't think I know many people that have it.
I mean, good as I'm a rent on iTunes boy, or buy on iTunes if things are on sale. I prefer the a la carte if I can. Obviously, sometimes you can't because something's exclusive to a streaming service, but that's more my my method. However, Abigail, interestingly, another vampire movie, so kind of a little thematic twofer back to this really old vampire movie, now a fresh modern take on the vampire movie, so we'll see how it shapes up.
I was gonna mention that it's fitting that it'll be the next movie, but then I wasn't sure if that's kind of a spoiler. I think enough people know that by now, but I remember like people being surprised by the trailer when it kind of revealed that that's the direction it goes in.
Also, did you intentionally wear a Dracula shirt
I did
today?
Yeah.
Yes. Left that up, let people see it. I saw it peeking through occasionally. Very nice, very nice. I don't think I own any vampire shirt. Actually, I do have an old Arkham Vania shirt, which I guess is slightly vampire related, but yeah.
I think that fits.
That's just a bit uncomfortable, so I don't really wear it that often, sadly.
Yeah.
It's a fun design.
I always hate that, when we have sometimes I get really excited about a shirt and then it gets in and then it either doesn't fit the way you expected, or like it has it's like a heavy material or something. Yeah,
it's thick. It's a thick material. I just don't like wearing it as much as everything else. It's a shame.
I hate those.
Oh well. Yeah, so that's next week on the show. You can, of course, support everything and help keep the show coming. Wouldn't be able to do this without the support on places like patreon.com/MailFuzzTV or maybe YouTube memberships if that's more your thing. But you get an exclusive episode every month. We've been doing summary themed slasher movies for the extra episodes. A couple of weeks time we'll be doing the last one of those for the summer. But there's a bunch of interesting things from there. Plus we do even more stream segments at $5 and up, which is where we'll do like a top 5, or we'll do different topics, or sometimes Tim will make me play a little horror movie related quiz or game or something like that. Usually just it's just to sit and chat about horror in some weird way. So if any of that sounds like fun, or you just want to support the content, you can do that over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. But otherwise, that is the show. So thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.